Chapter 54. The Book of Tribulations and Portents of the Last Hour. Chapter 1. The Approach of Tribulations and the Opening of the Barrier of Jajuj and Majuj. Zainab bint Jahsh reported that Allah's apostle got up from sleep saying, "There is no being worthy of worship except Allah. There is a destruction in store for Arabia because of turmoil which is at hand. The barrier of Gog and Magog has opened so much." And Sufyan made a sign of 10 with the help of his hand, in order to indicate the width of the gap. And I said, "Allah's messenger, would we be perished in spite of the fact that there would be good people amongst us?" Thereupon he said, "Of course, but only when the evil predominates." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Zainab bint Jahsh, with a slight variation in the chain of transmitters. Zainab bint Jahsh, the wife of Allah's apostle, reported that one day Allah's messenger came out in a state of excitement with his face quite red, and he was saying, "There is no God but Allah. There is a destruction in store for Arabia because of the turmoil which is near at hand, as the barrier of Gog and Magog has been opened like it." And he, in order to explain it, made a ring with the help of his thumb and forefinger. I said, "Allah's messenger, would we be destroyed despite the fact that there would be pious people amongst us?" He said, "Yes, when evil would be predominant." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Sudi with a different chain of transmitters. Abu Huraira reported Allah's apostle as saying, "Today the wall, barrier of Gog and Magog has been opened so much," and Wuhaib, in order to explain it, made the figure of 90 with the help of his hand. Chapter 2. The earth swallowed up the army that aims to attack the Kaaba. Harith bi Abi Rabia and Abdullah bi Safwan both went to Salama, the mother of the faithful, and they asked her about the army, which would be sunk in the earth. And this relates to the time when Ibn Zubayr was the governor of Mecca. She reported that Allah's messenger had said that a seeker of refuge would seek refuge in the sacred house, and an army would be sent to him in order to kill him, and when it would enter a plain ground, it will be made to sink. I said, "Allah's messenger, what about him who would be made to accompany this army willy-nilly?" Thereupon he said, "He would be made to sink along with them, but he would be raised on the day of resurrection on the basis of his intention." Abu Ja'far said, "This plain ground means the plain ground of Medina." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Abdullah bin Rufai with the same chain of transmitters, but with the addition of these words. When I met Abu Ja'far, I told him that she simply meant the plain ground. Thereupon Abu Ja'far said, "No, by God, she meant the plain ground of Medina." Abdullah bin Safwan reported that Hafsa told him that she had heard Allah's apostle as saying, "An army would attack this house in order to fight against the inhabitants of this house, and when it would be at the plain ground, the ranks in the center of the army would be sunk, and the vanguard would call the rear flanks of the army, and they would also be sunk, and no flank would be left except some people who would go to inform them, their kith and kin." A person who had been listening to this hadith from Abdullah bin Safwan said, "I bear testimony in regard to you that you are not imputing a lie to Hafsa, and I bear testimony to the fact that Hafsa is not telling a lie about Allah's apostle." Abdullah bin Safwan reported the mother of the faithful as saying that Allah's messenger said, "They would soon seek protection in this house, viz. Kaaba, the defenseless people who would have nothing to protect themselves in the shape of weapons or the strength of the people. An army would be sent to fight and kill them, and when they would enter a plain ground, the army would be sunk in it." Yusuf, one of the narrators, said, "It was a people of Syria, hordes of Hajjaj, who had been on that day coming towards Mecca for an attack on Abdullah bin Zubayr." And Abdullah bin Safwan said, "By God, it does not imply this army." Aisha reported that Allah's messenger was startled in the state of sleep. We said, "Allah's messenger, you have done something in the state of your sleep which you never did before." Thereupon he said, "Strange it is that some people of my ummah would attack the house Kaaba for killing a person who would belong to the tribe of the Quraysh, and he would try to seek protection in the house, and when they would reach the plain ground, they would be sunk." We said, "Allah's messenger, all sorts of people from the path." Thereupon he said, "Yes, there would be amongst them people who would come with the definite designs, and those who would come under duress, and there would be travelers also, but they would all be destroyed through one stroke of destruction, though they would be raised in different states on the day of resurrection. Allah would, however, raise them according to their intention." Chapter 3. Onset of tribulations like rainfall. Usama reported that Allah's messenger climbed up a battlement. Amongst the battlements of Medina, and then said, "You do not see what I am seeing, and I am seeing the places of turmoil between your houses as the places of rainfall." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Sudi with the same chain of transmitters. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "There will be soon a period of turmoil in which the one who sits will be better than one who stands, and the one who stands will be better than one who walks, and the one who walks will be better than one who runs. He who would watch them will be drawn by them. So he who finds a refuge or shelter against it should make it as his resort." This hadith has been transmitted on the authority of Abu Huraira, but with this variation of wording, that in the hadith transmitted on the authority of Abu Bakr, there is an addition of these words. There is a prayer among prayers, Asr, and one who misses it is as if his family and property have been ruined. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Apostle as saying, "There would be turmoil, and the one who would sleep would be better than who would be awake, and the one who would be awake would be better than one who would stand, and one who would stand would be better than one who would run. So he who finds refuge or shelter should take that refuge or shelter." Abu Bakr reported Allah's Messenger as saying, There would soon be turmoil. Behold, there would be turmoil in which the one who would be seated would be better than one who would stand, and the one who would stand would be better than one who would run. Behold, when the turmoil comes, or it appears, the one who has camel should stick to his camel, and he who has sheep or goat should stick to his sheep and goat, and he who has land should stick to the land. A person said, "Allah's Messenger, what is your opinion about one who has neither camel nor sheep nor land?" Thereupon he said, he should take hold of his sword and beat its edge with the help of stone, and then try to find a way of escape. O Allah, I have conveyed thy message. O Allah, I have conveyed thy message. O Allah, I have conveyed thy message. A person said, "Allah's Messenger, what is your opinion if I am drawn to a rank in spite of myself?" Or in one of the groups and made to march, and a man strikes with his sword, or there comes an arrow and kills me. Thereupon he said, he will bear the punishment of his sin and that of yours, and he would be one amongst the denizens of hell. This hadith has been transmitted on the authority of Waki with a slight variation of wording. Chapter 4. If two Muslims confront one another with their swords. Anaf B. Qais reported, I set out with the intention of helping this person, Hadrat Ali. When Abu Bakr met me, he said, Anaf, where do you intend to go? I said, I intend to help the cousin of Allah, the cousin of Allah's messenger. Whis Ali. Thereupon he said to me, Anaf, go back, for I heard Allah's messenger as saying, when two Muslims confront one another with swords in hand, both the slayer and the slain would be in fire. He, Anaf, said, I said, or it was said, Allah's messenger, it may be the case of one who kills, but what about the slain? Why he would be put in hellfire? Thereupon he said, he also intended to kill his companion. Anaf bin Qais reported on the authority of Abu Bakr that Allah's messenger said, when two Muslims confront each other with their swords, both the slayer and the slain are doomed to hellfire. This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Hamad through another chain of transmitters. Abu Bakr reported Allah's messenger as saying, when two Muslims confront each other and the one amongst them attacks his brother with a weapon, both of them are at the brink of hellfire. And when one of them kills his companion, both of them get into hellfire. Abu Huraira reported Allah's messenger many ahadith, and one of them was this: the last hour will not come until the two parties of Muslims confront each other, and there is a large-scale massacre amongst them, and the claim of both of them is the same. Abu Huraira reported Allah's messenger as saying, the last hour will not come unless there is much bloodshed. They said, what is Hadj? Thereupon he said, bloodshed, bloodshed. Chapter 5. Parts of this Ummah will destroy one another. Thawban reported that Allah's messenger said, Allah drew the ends of the world near one another for my sake, and I have seen its eastern and western ends, and the dominion of my Ummah would reach those ends which have been drawn near me. And I have been granted the red and the white treasure, and I beg my Lord for my Ummah that it should not be destroyed because of famine, nor be dominated by an enemy who is not amongst them to take their lives and destroy them, root and branch. And my Lord said, Muhammad, whenever I make a decision, there is none to change it. I grant you for your Ummah that it would not be destroyed by famine, and it would not be dominated by an enemy who would not be amongst it, and would take their lives and destroy them, root and branch, even if all the people from the different parts of the world join hands together for this purpose. But it would be from amongst them, this your Ummah, that some people will kill the others or imprison the others. Thabban reported that Allah's messenger said, "Verily, Allah drew the ends of the world near me, until I saw its east and west, and He bestowed upon me 2 treasures, the red and the white." The rest of the hadith is the same. Amir Bisad reported on the authority of his father that one day Allah's messenger came from a high land. He passed by the mosque of Banu Muawiyah, went in and observed 2 rakas there, and we also observed prayer along with him, and he made a long supplication to his Lord. He then came to us and said, "I asked my Lord 3 things, and He has granted me 2, but has withheld 1. I begged my Lord that my ummah should not be destroyed because of famine, and He granted me this. And I begged my Lord that my ummah should not be destroyed by drowning, by deluge, and He granted me this. And I begged my Lord that there should be no bloodshed among the people of my ummah, but He did not grant it." Amir Bisad reported on the authority of his father that Allah's messenger came with a group of his companions, and he passed by the mosque of Banu Muawiyah. The rest of the hadith is the same. Chapter 6. The Prophet's foretelling of what will happen until the hour begins. Hudayfa bin al-Yaman reported, "By Allah, I have the best knowledge amongst people about every turmoil which is going to appear, and which is going to appear in the period intervening me and the last hour, and it is not for the fact that Allah's messenger told me something confidentially pertaining to it, and he did not tell anybody else about it, but it is because of the fact that I was present in the assembly in which he had been describing the turmoil, and he especially made a mention of 3 turmoils which would not spare anything, and amongst these there would be turmoils like storms in the hot season. Some of them would be violent, and some of them would be comparatively mild. Hudayfa said, "All who were present, except I have gone to the next world." Hudayfa reported that Allah's messenger stood before us one day, and he did not leave anything unsaid that he had to say at that very spot which would happen. In the shape of turmoil up to the last hour, those who had to remember them preserved them in their minds, and those who could not remember them forgot them. My friends knew them, and there are certain things which slip out of my mind, but I recapitulate them when anyone makes a mention of them, just as a person is lost from one's mind but is recalled to him on seeing his face. This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Amas with the same chain of transmitters up to the words, "And he forgot who had to forget that, and he did not make a mention of what follows after this." Hudayfa reported, "Allah's Messenger informed me of what is going to happen before the approach of the last hour. And there is nothing that I did not ask him in this connection, except this, that I did not ask him as to what would turn the people of Medina out from Medina." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Shuba with the same chain of transmitters. Abu Said vis Amr bi Aqtab reported, "Allah's Messenger led us in the dawn prayer and then mounted the pulpit and addressed us until it was time for the noon prayer. He then came down the pulpit and observed prayer, and then again mounted the pulpit and again addressed us until it was time for the Asr prayer. He then again came down and observed the prayer, and again mounted the pulpit and addressed us until the sun was set, and he informed about everything pertaining to turmoil that lay hidden in the past and what lies in the womb of the future, and the most learned amongst us is one who remembers them well." Chapter 7. The Tribulation that will come like waves of the ocean. Hudayfa reported, "We were one day in the company of Umar, that he said, 'Who amongst you has preserved in his mind most perfectly the hadith of Allah's Messenger in regard to the turmoil as he told about it?' I said, 'It is I.' Thereupon he said, 'You are bold enough to make this claim.' And he further said, 'How?' I said, 'I heard Allah's Messenger as saying, there would first be turmoil for a person in regard to his family, his property, his own self, his children, his neighbors, and the sins committed in their connection would be expiated by fasting, prayer, charity, enjoining good, and prohibiting evil.' Thereupon Umar said, 'I do not mean that turmoil on a small scale, but that one which would emerge like the mounting waves of the ocean.' I said, 'Commander of the faithful, you have nothing to do with it, for the door is closed between you and that.' He said, 'Would that door be broken or opened?' I said, 'No, it would be broken.' Thereupon he said, 'Then it would not be closed despite best efforts.' We said to Hudayfa, 'Did Umar know the door?' Thereupon he said, 'Yes, he knew it, for certain, just as one knows that night precedes the next day.' And I narrated to him something in which there was nothing fabricated Shakik, one of the narrators, said, "We dared not ask Hudayfa about that door, so we requested Masruq to ask him. So he asked him, and he said, by that door he meant Umar." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Hudayfa through other chains of transmitters also. Hudayfa reported that Umar said, "Who would narrate to us the ahadith pertaining to turmoil?" And he reported a hadith similar to these ahadith. Jundub reported, "I came on the day of Jara that a person was found sitting. I said, they would shed their blood today. That person said, by Allah, not at all. I said, by Allah, of course, they would do it. He said, by Allah, they would not do it. I said, by Allah, of course, they would do it. He said, by Allah, they would not do it. And I have heard a hadith of Allah's Messenger, which I am narrating to you in this connection. I said, you are a bad seed fellow. I have been opposing you since morning, and you are listening to me in spite of the fact that you have heard a hadith from Allah's Apostle, contrary to my statement. I myself felt that there was no use of this annoyance. He could tell me earlier that it was a hadith of the Prophet, may peace be upon him, and I would not have opposed him at all. I turned my face toward him and asked him, and he was Hadrat Hudayfa. Chapter 8. The hour will not begin until the Euphrates uncovers a mountain of gold. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, the last hour will not come before the Euphrates uncovers a mountain of gold, for which people would fight. 99 out of each 100 would die, but every man amongst them would say that perhaps he would be the one who would be saved, and thus possess this gold. This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Suhail, with the same chain of transmitters, but with this addition. My father said, if you see that, do not even go near it. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, the last hour will not come unless the Euphrates would uncover a treasure of gold. So he who finds it should not take anything out of that. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, the Euphrates would soon uncover a mountain of gold, but he who is present there should not take anything from that. Abdullah bin Harith bin Nawfal reported, I was standing along with Ubay bin Ka'b, and he said, the opinions of the people differ in regard to the achievement of worldly ends. I said, yes, of course. Thereupon he said, I heard Allah's Messenger as saying, the Euphrates would soon uncover a mountain of gold, and when the people would bear of it, they would flock towards it. But the people who would possess that treasure would say, if we allow these persons to take out of it, they would take away the whole of it. So they would fight, and 99 out of 100 would be killed. Abu Kamil in his narration said, I and Ubay bin Ka'b stood under the shade of the battlement of Hassan. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, Iraq would withhold its dirhams and coffees. Syria would withhold its mud and dinar, and Egypt would withhold its irdab and dinar. And you would recoil to that position from where you started, and you would recoil to that position from where you started, and you would recoil to that position from where you started. The flesh and blood of Abu Huraira would bear testimony to it. Chapter 9. The conquest of Constantinople, the emergence of the Dajjal, and the descent of Isa bin Maryam. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "The last hour will not come until the Romans would land at Al-Amak or in Dabik, an army consisting of the best soldiers of the people of the earth at that time will come from Medina to counteract them, when they will arrange themselves in ranks. The Romans would say, 'Do not stand between us and those Muslims who took prisoners from amongst us. Let us fight with them.' And the Muslims would say, 'Nay, by Allah, we would never get aside from you and from our brethren, that you may fight them.' They will then fight, and a third part of the army would run away, for whom Allah will never forgive. A third part of the army, which would be constituted of excellent martyrs in Allah's eye, would be killed, and the third, who would never be put to trial, would win. And they would be conquerors of Constantinople, and as they would be busy in distributing the spoils of war amongst themselves, after hanging their swords by the olive trees, the Satan would cry, 'The Dajjal has taken your place.' The Dajjal has taken your place among your family. They would then come out, but it would be of no avail, and when they would come to Syria, he would come out while they would be still preparing themselves for battle, drawing up the ranks. Certainly the time of prayer shall come, and then Jesus, peace be upon him, son of Mary, would descend and would lead them. When the enemy of Allah would see him, it would disappear, just as the salt dissolves itself in water. And if Jesus were not to confront them at all, even then it would dissolve completely. But Allah would kill them by his hand, and he would show them their blood on his lance, the lance of Jesus Christ. Chapter 10. The hour will begin when the Byzantines are the most prevalent of people. Mustawrid al-Qurashi reported, "I heard Allah's Messenger as saying, 'The last hour would come when the Romans would form a majority amongst people.' Amr said to him, 'Mustawrid Qurashi, see what you are saying.' He said, 'I say what I heard from Allah's Messenger.' Thereupon he said, 'If you say that, it is a fact, for they have 4 qualities. They have the patience to undergo a trial and immediately restore themselves to sanity. After trouble and attack, again after a flight. They have the quality of being good to the destitute and the orphans, to the weak, and fifthly, the good quality in them is that they put resistance against the oppression of kings. Mustawrid Qurashi reported, I heard Allah's Messenger as saying, the last hour would come when the Romans would form a majority amongst people. This reached Amr bin al-As, and he said, what are these ahadith which are being transmitted from you, and which you claim to have heard from Allah's Messenger? Mustawrid said to him, I stated only that which I heard from Allah's Messenger. Thereupon Amr said, if you state this, it is true, for they have the power of tolerance amongst people at the time of turmoil, and restore themselves to sanity after trouble, and are good amongst people so far as the destitute and the weak are concerned. Chapter 11. Fighting the Byzantines and a great deal of killing when Ad-Dajjal emerges. Usaid bin Jabir reported, Once there blew a red storm in Kufa, that there came a person who had nothing to say but these words, Abdullah bin Masud, the last hour has come. He, Abdullah bin Masud, was sitting reclining against something, and he said, the last hour would not come until shares of inheritance are not distributed, and there is no rejoicing over spoils of war. Then he said, pointing towards Syria with a gesture of his hand like this, the enemy shall muster strength against Muslims, and the Muslims will muster strength against them Syrians. I said, you mean Rome? And he said, yes, and there would be a terrible fight. And the Muslims will prepare a detachment for fighting unto death, which would not return but victorious. They will fight until night will intervene them. Both the sides will return without being victorious, and both will be wiped out. The Muslims will again prepare a detachment for fighting unto death, so that they may not return but victorious. When it would be the fourth day, a new detachment out of the remnant of the Muslims would be prepared, and Allah will decree that the enemy should be routed, and they would fight such a fight, the like of which would not be seen, so much so that even if a bird were to pass their flanks, it would fall down dead before reaching the end of them. There would be such a large-scale massacre that when counting would be done, only 1 out of 100 men related to one another would be found alive. So what can be the joy at the spoils of such a war? And what inheritance would be divided? They would be in this very state, that they would hear of a calamity more horrible than this, and a cry would reach them, that Dajjal has taken your place among your offspring. They will therefore throw away what would be in their hands, and go forward, sending 10 horsemen as a scouting party. Allah's Messenger said, I know their names, and the names of their forefathers, and the color of their horses, They will be the best horsemen on the surface of the earth on that day, or amongst the best horsemen on the surface of the earth on that day. Jabir reported, I was in the company of Ibn Masud that there blew a red storm. The rest of the hadith is the same. Jabir reported, I was in the house of Abdullah bin Masud, and the house was fully packed, that a red storm blew in Kufa. Chapter 12. Conquests of the Muslims before the appearance of Al-Dajjal. Nafi bin Utbah reported, we were with Allah's Messenger in an expedition, that there came a people to Allah's Apostle from the direction of the west. They were dressed in woolen clothes, and they stood near a hillock, and they met him as Allah's Messenger was sitting. I said to myself, better go to them and stand between him and them, that they may not attack him. Then I thought that perhaps there had been going on secret negotiation amongst them. I, however, went to them and stood between them and him, and I remember 4 of the words on that occasion, which I repeat on the fingers of my hand, that he, Allah's Messenger, said, you will attack Arabia and Allah will enable you to conquer it. Then you would attack Persia and he would make you to conquer it. Then you would attack Rome and Allah will enable you to conquer it. Then you would attack the Dajjal and Allah will enable you to conquer him. Nafi said, Jabir, we thought that the Dajjal would appear after Rome, Assyrian territory, would be conquered. Chapter 13. The signs which will appear before the hour. Hudayfa bin Usaid al-Ghifari reported, Allah's Messenger came to us all of a sudden as we were busy in a discussion. He said, what do you discuss about day? The companions said, we are discussing about the last hour. Thereupon he said, it will not come until you see 10 signs. Before and in the disconnection, he made a mention of the smoke, Dajjal, the beast, the rising of the sun from the west, the descent of Jesus, son of Mary, Allah be pleased with him, the Gog and Magog, and land slides in 3 places, one in the east, one in the west, and one in Arabia, at the end of which fire would burn forth from the Yemen, and would drive people to the place of their assembly. Hudayfa bin Usaid reported, Allah's Apostle was in an apartment and we were beneath that he peeped in and said to us, what are you discussing about? We said, we are discussing about the last hour. Thereupon he said, the last hour would not come until the 10 signs appear, land sliding in the east, and land sliding in the west, and land sliding in the peninsula of Arabia, the smoke, the Dajjal, the beast of the earth, Gog and Magog, the rising of the sun from the west, and the fire which would emit from the lower part of Adon. Shuba said that Abd al-Aziz bin Rufai reported on the authority of Abu Tufail, who reported on the authority of of Abu Sariha, a hadith like this, that Allah's apostle did not make a mention of the 10th sign, but he said that out of the 10 one was the descent of Jesus, son of Mary, peace be upon him, and in another version it is the blowing of the violent gate, which would drive the people to the ocean. Abu Sariha reported, Allah's messenger was in an upper apartment and we were standing lower to him and discussing about the last hour. The rest of the hadith is the same. And Shuba said, I think he also said these words, the fire would descend along with them, where they would land and where they would take rest during midday. It would also cool down for a while. Shuba said, this hadith has been transmitted to me through Abu Tufail and Abu Sariha, and none could trace it back directly to Allah's apostle. However, there is a mention of the descent of Jesus Christ, son of Mary, in one version, and in the other there is a mention of the blowing of a violent gale, which would drive them to the ocean. Violent gale. Another chain of transmitters reported the like of the previous two chains. Abu Sariha reported, we were discussing the last hour that Allah's apostle looked towards us. The rest of the hadith is the same, and the 10th sign was the descent of Jesus Christ, son of Mary. And Shuba said, Abd al-Aziz did not trace it directly to Allah's apostle. Chapter 14. The hour will not begin until a fire emerges from the land of the Hijaz. Abu Huraira reported that Allah's messenger said, the last hour would not come until the fire emits from the earth of Hijaz, which would illuminate the necks of the camels of the Busra. Chapter 15. The inhabitants of Al-Madinah and how far it will be developed before the hour. Abu Huraira reported that Allah's messenger said, the last hour will not come until the habitations of Medina would extend to Ihab or Yahab. Zubayr said, I said to Suhail how far these were from Medina. He said, so and so miles. Abu Huraira reported Allah's messenger as saying, the famine would not break out because of drought, but there would be famine despite heavy rainfall, as nothing would grow from the earth. Chapter 16. Tribulation from the east, from where the horns of the shaitan appear. Ibn Umar reported that he heard Allah's messenger as saying in a state that he had turned his face towards the east. Behold, turmoil would appear from this side, from where the horns of Satan would appear. Ibn Umar reported that Allah's messenger stood by the door of the apartment of Hafsa and pointing towards the east, he said, the turmoil would appear from this side, this where the horns of Satan would appear. And he uttered these words twice or thrice, and Ubaydullah bin Sa'id in his narration said, the messenger of Allah had been standing by the door of Aisha. Salim B. Abdullah reported on the authority of his father that Allah's Messenger, while turning his face towards the east, said, "The turmoil would appear from this side. Verily, the turmoil would appear from this side. Verily, the turmoil would appear from this side, the side where appear the horns of Satan." Ibn Umar reported that Allah's Messenger came out from the house of Aisha and said, "It would be from this side that there would appear the height of unbelief, where appear the horns of Satan, yet the east." Ibn Umar reported, "I heard Allah's Messenger as saying, while pointing his hands towards the east, the turmoil would appear from this side. Verily, the turmoil would appear from this side." He repeated it thrice, "where appear the horns of Satan." Ibn Fudayl reported on the authority of his father that he heard Salim B. Abdullah B. Umar as saying, "O people of Iraq, how strange it is that you ask about the minor sins but commit major sins. I heard from my father Abdullah B. Umar narrating that he heard Allah's Messenger as saying while pointing his hand towards the east, Verily the turmoil would come from this side, from where appear the horns of Satan, and you would strike the necks of one another. And Moses killed a person from among the people of Pharaoh unintentionally, and Allah the Exalted and Glorious said, You killed a person, but we relieved you from the grief and tried you with many a trial. XX 40. Ahmad B. Umar reported this hadith from Salim, but he did not make a mention of the words I heard. Chapter 17. The hour will not Chapter 17. The hour will not begin until those worship Dhul Khalasa. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, The last hour will not come until the woman of the tribe of Daus would be seen going round the Al-Khalasa for worship. And the Al-Khalasa is a place in Tabala where there was a temple in which the people of the tribe of Daus used to worship the idol. Aisha reported, I heard Allah's Messenger as saying, the system of night and day would not end until the people have taken to the worship of Lat and Uzza. I said, Allah's Messenger, I think when Allah has revealed this verse, He it is who has sent His Messenger with right guidance and true religion, so that He may cause it to prevail upon all religions. Though the polytheists are averse to it. IX 33. It implies that this promise is going to be fulfilled. Thereupon, he, Allah's Apostle, said, It would happen as Allah would like. Then Allah would send the sweet fragrant air, by which everyone who has even a mustard grain of faith in him would die, and those only would survive who would have no goodness in them, and they would revert to the religion of their forefathers. This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Ibn Jafar with the same chain of transmitters. Chapter 18. The hour will not begin until a man passes by another man's grave and wishes that he was in the place of the deceased because of calamity. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, The last hour would not come until a person would pass by a grave of another person, and he would say, I wish it had been my abode. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "By him in whose hand is my life, the world would not come to an end until a person would pass by a grave, would roll over it and express the desire that he should be in the place of the occupant of that grave, not because of religious reasons, but because of this calamity." Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "By him in whose hand is my life, a time would come when the murderer would not know why he has committed the murder, and the victim would not know why he has been killed." Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "The world would not come to an end until a day would come to the people on which the murderer would not know as to why he has killed, and the slain would not know as to why he has been murdered. It would be said, 'Why would it happen?' To which he replied, 'It will be because of general massacre and bloodshed, and the slaughterers and the slain would be in fire.'" And in the narration of Ibn Aban, the name of Abu Ismail has been mentioned. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "The Kaaba would be destroyed by an Abyssinian having 2 small shanks." The above mentioned hadith has been narrated on the authority of Abu Huraira through another chain of transmitters. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "It will be an Abyssinian having 2 small shanks who would destroy the house of Allah, the exalted and glorious." Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "The last hour will not come before a person of Qatan comes forth driving people with his stick." Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "The day and the night would not come to an end before a man called Al-Jajjah would occupy the throne." Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "The last hour would not come unless you fight with people whose faces are like hammered shields, and the last hour would not come until you would fight against those wearing the shoes of hair." Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "The last hour will not come until a people wearing shoes of hair fight against you, having their faces like hammered shields." Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "The last hour will not come until you fight with a people wearing shoes of hair, and the last hour will not come until you fight with a people having small eyes and broad snub noses." Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "The last hour will not come until the Muslims fight with the Turks, a people whose faces would be like hammered shields, wearing clothes of hair and walking with shoes of hair." Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "You shall fight in the hours to come against a nation wearing shoes made of hair and faces like hammered shields, with red complexion and small eyes." Abu Nadra reported, "We were in the company of Jabir bin Abdullah, that he said, 'It may happen that the people of Iraq may not send their kafis and dirhams, their measures of food stuff, and their money.' We said, 'Who would be responsible for it?' He said, 'The non-Arabs would prevent them.' He again said, 'There is the possibility that the people of Syria may not send their dinars and muds.' We said, 'Who would be responsible for it?' He said, 'This prevention would be made by the Romans.' He, Jabir bin Abdullah, kept quiet for a while, and then reported Allah's Messenger having said, "There would be a caliph in the last period of my ummah who would freely give handfuls of wealth to the people without counting it." I said to Abu Nadra and Abu al-Ala, "Do you mean Umar bin Abd al-Aziz?" They said, "No, he would be Imam Mahdi." This hadith have been narrated by Sa'id with the same chain of transmitters. Abu Sa'id reported that Allah's Messenger, may peace be upon him, I said, "There would be amongst your caliphs a caliph who would give handfuls of wealth to the people, but would not count it." In the narration transmitted on the authority of Ibn Hujr, there is a slight variation of wording. Abu Sa'id and Jabir bin Abdullah reported that Allah's Messenger said, "There would be in the last phase of the time a caliph who would distribute wealth but would not count." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Abu Sa'id through another chain of transmitters. Abu Sa'id Khudri reported, "One who is better than I informed me that Allah's Messenger said to Ammar as he was digging the ditch on the occasion of the battle of the ditch, wiping over his head, 'O son of Sumayya, you will be involved in trouble, and a group of the rebels would kill you.'" This hadith has been transmitted on the same authority, but with this variation that the hadith transmitted on the authority of Nabra, the words are, "One who is better than I informed me, and he was Abu Qatada," and in the hadith transmitted on the authority of Khalid, instead of the word bus, there is ways or Yahweh's, how sad it is. This hadith has been transmitted on the authority of Salama, that Allah's Messenger said to Ammar, "A group of rebels would kill you." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Salama through another chain of transmitters. Salama reported that Allah's Messenger said, "A band of rebels would kill Ammar." Abu Huraira reported that Allah's Apostle, as saying that this tribe of the Quraysh would kill people of my ummah. They, the companions, said, "What do you command us to do in such a situation?" Thereupon he said, "Would that the people remain aside from them, and not besmear their hands with the blood of the Muslim." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Shuba with the same chain of transmitters. Abu Huraira reported that Allah's Messenger said, Khusrev, king of Persia, would die, and Caesar, king of Rome, would die. There would be no Caesar after him. But by the one in whose hand is my life, you would spend their treasures in the cause of Allah. This hadith has been transmitted on the authority of Suri. Hammam bin Munabi reported, "This is what Abu Huraira reported from Allah's Messenger," and in this connection he reported so many hadith, and one of them was this: Allah's Messenger said, "Kisra would die, and then there would be no Kisra after him. Caesar would die, and there would be no Caesar after him, but you will distribute their treasures in the cause of Allah." Jabir bin Samura reported that Allah's Messenger said, "When Kisra would die, there will be no Kisra after him." The rest of the hadith is the same as Abu Huraira reported. Jabir bin Samura reported, "I heard Allah's Messenger as saying, there would lie there would lie open for a group of Muslims or for a group of believers the treasures of the family of Kisra, which would be in the White Palace. In a version of Qutayba, there is definitely the word Muslim. Jabir bin Samura reported, I heard Allah's Messenger a hadith like this. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Apostle, may peace be upon him, saying, You have heard about a city, one side of which is on land and the other is in the sea, Constantinople. They said, Allah's Messenger, yes. Thereupon he said, the last hour would not come unless 70,000 persons from Bani Ishaq would attack it. When they would land there, they will neither fight with weapons nor would shower arrows, but would only say, There is no God but Allah, and Allah is the greatest, and one side of it would fall. Tawr, one of the narrators, said, I think that he said, the part by the side of the ocean. Then they would say for the second time, There is no God but Allah, and Allah is the greatest. And the second side would also fall. And they would say, There is no God but Allah, and Allah is the greatest. And the gates would be opened for them, and they would enter therein, and they would be collecting spoils of war and distributing them amongst themselves, when a noise would be heard, saying, Verily, Dajjal has come, and thus they would leave everything there and go back. Tawr bin Said has narrated this hadith with the same chain of transmitters. Ibn Umar reported Allah's Messenger as saying, You will fight against the Jews, and you will kill them until even a stone would say, Come here, Muslim, there is a Jew hiding himself behind me, kill him. Ubaidullah has reported this hadith with this chain of transmitters, and the words are, There is a Jew behind me. Abdullah bin Umar reported Allah's Messenger as saying, You and the Jews would fight against one another until a stone would say, Muslim, here is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. Abdullah bin Umar reported that Allah's Messenger said, The Jews will fight against you, and you will gain victory over them until the stone would say, Muslim, here is a Jew behind me, kill him. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, The last hour would not come unless the Muslims will fight against the Jews, and the Muslims would kill them until the Jews would hide themselves behind a stone or a tree, and a stone or a tree would say, Muslim, or the servant of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. But the tree God would not say, for it is the tree of the Jews. Jabir bin Samura reported, I heard Allah's Messenger as saying, Before the last hour there would be many liars, and there is an addition in the hadith transmitted on the authority of Abu Abbas of these words. I said to him, Did you hear it from Allah's Messenger? He said, Yes. This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Simak with the same chain of transmitters, and Simak said, I heard my brother say that Jabir had stated, Be on your guard against them. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, The last hour would not come until there would arise about 30 impostors, liars, and each one of them would claim that he is a messenger of Allah. This hadith has been transmitted on the authority of Abu Huraira, with a slight variation of wording. Chapter 19, Ibn Sayyad. Abdullah reported, "We were along with Allah's Messenger that we happened to pass by children, amongst whom there was Ibn Sayyad. The children made their way, but Ibn Sayyad kept sitting there, and it seemed as if Allah's Messenger did not like it, his sitting with the children, and said to him, 'May your nose he be smeared with dust. Don't you bear testimony to the fact that I am the Messenger of Allah?' Thereupon he said, 'No, but you should bear testimony that I am the Messenger of Allah.' Thereupon Umar bin Khattab said, 'Allah's Messenger, permit me that I should kill him.' Thereupon Allah's Messenger said, 'If he is that person who is in your mind Dajjal, you will not be able to kill him.' Abdullah reported, we were walking with Allah's Messenger, that Ibn Sayyad happened to pass by him. Allah's Messenger said to him, 'I have concealed for you something to test you, so tell me that.' He said, 'It is Duk.' Thereupon Allah's Messenger said to him, 'Be off, you cannot get farther than your rank.' Whereupon Umar said, 'Allah's Messenger, permit me to strike his neck.' Thereupon Allah's Messenger said, 'Leave him. If he is that one, Dajjal, whom you apprehend, you will not be able to kill him.' Abu Sa'id reported that Allah's Messenger met him, Ibn Sayyad, and so did Abu Bakr and Umar, on some of the roads of Medina. Allah's Messenger said, 'Do you bear testimony to the fact that I am the Messenger of Allah?' Thereupon he said, 'Do you bear testimony to the fact that I am the Messenger of Allah?' Thereupon Allah's Messenger said, 'I affirm my faith in Allah and in His angels and in His books. And what do you see?' He said, 'I see the throne over water.' Whereupon Allah's Messenger said, 'You see the throne of Iblis upon the water. And what else do you see?' He said, 'I see two truthfuls and a liar, or two liars and one truthful.' Thereupon Allah's Messenger said, 'Leave him, he has been confounded.' Jabir bin Abdullah reported that Allah's Messenger met Ibn Sayyad, and there were with him Abu Bakr and Umar, and Ibn Sayyad was in the company of children. The rest of the hadith is the same. Abu Sa'id reported, 'I accompanied Ibn Sayyad to Mecca, and he said to me, "What I have gathered from people is that they think that I am Dajjal. Have you not heard Allah's Messenger, may peace upon him, as saying, he will have no children?" I said, "Yes, of course." Thereupon he said, "But I have children. Have you not heard Allah's Messenger as saying, he would not enter Mecca and Medina?" I said, "Yes, of course." Thereupon he said, "I have been once in Medina, and now I intend to go to Mecca." And he said to me at the end of his talk, "By Allah, I know his place of birth, his abode, where he is just now." He, Abu Sa'id, said, "This caused confusion in my mind in regard to his identity." Abu Sa'id Khudri reported, "Ibn Sa'id said to me something for which I felt ashamed. He said, 'I can excuse others, but what has gone wrong with you, O companions of Muhammad, that you take me as Dajjal? Has Allah's apostle not said that he would be a Jew, whereas I am a Muslim? And he also said that he would not have children, whereas I have children. And he also said, verily, Allah has prohibited him to enter Mecca, whereas I have performed pilgrimage.' And he went on saying this, that I was about to be impressed by his talk. He, however, said this also, 'I know where he, Dajjal, is, and I know his father and mother.' And it was said to him, won't you feel pleased if you would be the same person?" Thereupon he said, "If this offer is made to me, I would not resent that." Abu Sa'id al-Khudri reported, "We came back after having performed pilgrimage or Umrah, and Ibn Sa'id was along with us, and we encamped at a place and the people dispersed, and I and he were left behind. I felt terribly frightened from him, as it was said about him that he was the Dajjal. He brought his goods and placed them by my luggage, and I said, 'It is intense heat. Would you not place that under that tree?' And he did that. Then there appeared before us a flock of sheep. He went and brought a cup of milk and said, 'Abu Sa'id, drink that.' I said, 'It is intense heat, and the milk is also hot,' whereas the fact was that I did not like to drink from his hands, or to take it from his hand. And he said, 'Abu Sa'id, I think that I should take a rope and suspend it by the tree, and then commit suicide because of the talks of the people.' And he further said, 'Abu Sa'id, he who is ignorant of the saying of Allah's Messenger, he is to be pardoned. But, O people of Ansar, is this hadith of Allah's Messenger concealed from you, whereas you have the best knowledge of the hadith of Allah's Messenger amongst people? Did Allah's Messenger not say that he, Dajjal, would be a non-believer, whereas I am a believer? Did Allah's Messenger not say he would be barren and no child would be born to him, whereas I have left my children in Medina? Did Allah's Messenger, may peace upon him, not say he would not get into Medina and Mecca, whereas I have been coming from Medina and now I intend to go to Mecca?" Abu Sa'id said, "I was about to accept the excuse put forward by him. Then he said, 'I know the place where he would be born and where he is now.' So I said to him, 'May your whole day be spent.'" This hadith has transmitted on the authority of Abu Sa'id that Allah's Messenger asked Ibn Sa'id about the earth of paradise. Thereupon he said, Abul Qasim, it is like a fine white musk. Whereupon he, the Holy Prophet, said, "You have told the truth." Abu Sa'id reported that Ibn Sayyad asked Allah's Messenger about the earth of paradise, whereupon he said, "It is like white shining pure musk." Muhammad b. Munkadir reported, "As I saw Jabir b. Abdullah taking an oath in the name of Allah, that it was Ibn Sa'id who was the Dajjal, I said, 'Do you take an oath in the name of Allah?' Thereupon he said, 'I heard Umar taking an oath in the presence of Allah's Apostle to this effect, but Allah's Apostle did not disapprove of it.'" Abdullah b. Umar reported, Umar b. Khattab went along with Allah's Messenger in the company of some persons to Ibn Sayyad, that he found him playing with children near the battlement of Bani Maghala, and Ibn Sayyad was at that time just at the threshold of adolescence, and he did not perceive the presence of Holy Prophet until Allah's Messenger struck his back with his hands. Allah's Messenger said, "Ibn Sayyad, don't you bear witness that I am the Messenger of Allah?" Ibn Sayyad looked toward him, and he said, "I bear witness to the fact that you, the Messenger of the unlettered." Ibn Sayyad said to the Allah's Messenger, "Do you bear witness to the fact that I am the Messenger of Allah?" Allah's Messenger rejected this and said, "I affirm my faith in Allah and His messengers. Then Allah's messenger said to him, "What do you see?" Ibn Sayyad said, "It is a duck." Thereupon Allah's messenger said, "May you be disgraced and dishonored. You would not be able to go beyond your rank." Umar bin Khattab said, "Allah's messenger, permit me that I should strike his neck." Thereupon Allah's messenger said, "If he is the same Dajjal who would appear near the last hour, you will not be able to overpower him. And if he is not, that there is no good for you to kill him." Abdullah bin Umar further narrated that after some time, Allah's messenger and Ubay bin Ka'b went towards the palm trees where Ibn Sayyad was. When Allah's messenger went near the tree, he hid himself behind a tree with the intention of hearing something from Ibn Sayyad before Ibn Sayyad could see him. But Allah's messenger saw him on a bed with a blanket around him, from which a murmuring sound was being heard. And Ibn Sayyad's mother saw Allah's messenger behind the trunk of the palm tree. She said to Ibn Sayyad, Saf, that being his name, "Here is Muhammad." Thereupon Ibn Sayyad jumped up, murmuring, and Allah's messenger said, "If she had left him alone, he would have made things clear." Abdullah bin Umar told that Allah's messenger stood up amongst the people and lauded Allah as he deserved. Then he made a mention of the Dajjal and said, "I warn you of him, and there is no prophet who has not warned his people against the Dajjal. Even Noah warned against him. But I am going to tell you a thing which no prophet told his people. You must know that he, the Dajjal, is one-eyed, and Allah, the Exalted and Glorious, is not one-eyed." Ibn Shihab said, Umar bin Thabit al-Ansari informed me that some of the companions of Allah's Messenger informed him that the day when Allah's Messenger warned people against the Dajjal, he also said there would be written between his two eyes the word kafir, infidel, and everyone who would resent his deeds would be able to read, or every Muslim would be able to read. And he also said, "Bear this thing in mind, that none amongst you will be able to see Allah, the Exalted and Glorious, until he dies." Abdullah bin Umar reported that Allah's messenger went along with him in the company of some persons, and there was Umar bin Khattab also amongst them, till they saw Ibn Sayyad as a young boy just on the threshold of adolescence, playing with children near the battlement of Bani Muawiyah. The rest of the hadith is the same, but with these concluding words: had his mother left him to murmur, his matter would have become clear. Ibn Umar reported that Allah's messenger happened to pass by Ibn Sayyad along with his companions, including Umar bin Khattab, as he was playing with children near the battlement of Bani Maghala, and he was also a child by that time. The rest of the hadith is the same as narrated by Ibn Umar, in which there is a mention of setting out of Allah's apostle along with Ubay bin Ka'b towards the date palm trees. Nafi reported that Ibn Umar met Ibn Sid on some of the paths of Medina, and he said to him a word which enraged him, and he was so much swollen with anger that the way was blocked. Ibn Umar went to Hafsa and informed him and informed her about this. Thereupon she said, "May Allah have mercy upon you. Why did you incite Ibn Sayyad in spite of the fact that you knew it would be the extreme anger which would make Dajjal appear in the world?" Nafi reported that Ibn Umar said, "I met Ibn Sayyad twice and said to some of them, his friends, 'You state that it was he, the Dajjal.' He said, 'By Allah, it is not so.' I said, 'You have not told me the truth. By Allah, some of you informed me that he would not die until he would have the largest number of offspring and huge wealth, and it is he about whom it is thought so.' Then Ibn Sayyad talked to us. I then departed and met him again for the second time, and his eye had been swollen. I said, 'What has happened to your eye?' He said, 'I do not know.' I said, 'This is in your head, and you do not know about it.' He said, 'If Allah so wills, He can create it, eye in your staff.' He then produced a sound like the braying of a donkey. Some of my companions thought that I had struck him with the staff as he was with me, that the staff broke into pieces. But by Allah, I was not conscious of it. He then came to the mother of the faithful, Hafsa, and narrated it to her. And she said, What concern you have with him? Don't you know that Allah's apostle said that the first thing by the incitement of which he would come out before the public would be his anger? Chapter 20, Ad-Dajjal. Ibn Umar reported that Allah's messenger made a mention of Dajjal in the presence of the people and said, Allah is not one-eyed, and behold, that Dajjal is blind of the right eye, and his eye would be like a floating grape. This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Ibn Umar through another chain of transmitters. Anas bin Malik reported that Allah's messenger said, There is never a prophet who has not warned the Ummah of that one-eyed liar. Behold, he is one-eyed, and your Lord is not one-eyed. On his forehead are the letters K-F-R, Kafir. Anas bin Malik reported that Allah's messenger said, There will be written 3 letters K-F-R, i.e. Kafir, between the eyes of the Dajjal. Anas bin Malik reported that Allah's messenger said, Dajjal is blind of one eye, and there is written between his eyes the word Kafir. He then spelled the word as K-F-R, which every Muslim would be able to read. Hudayfa reported that Allah's messenger said, Dajjal is blind of left eye, with thick hair. And there would be a garden and fire with him, and his fire would be a garden, and his garden would be fire. It was narrated that Hudayfa said, The messenger of Allah said, I know what the Dajjal will have with him. He will have 2 flowing rivers, one that appears to the eye to be clear water, and one that appears to the eye to be flaming fire. If anyone sees that, let him go to the river, which he thinks is fire, and close his eyes. Then lower his head and drink from it, for it is cool water. The Dajjal has one blind eye, with a layer of thick skin over it, and between his eyes is written disbeliever, which every believer will read, whether he is literate or illiterate. Hudayfa reported Allah's messenger as saying, The Dajjal would have with him water and fire, and his fire would have the effect of cold water, and his water would have the effect of fire. So don't put yourself to ruin. Abu Masud reported, I also heard it from Allah's Messenger. Uqba bi Amr, Abu Masud al-Ansari reported, I went to Hudayfa bi Yaman and said to him, narrate what you have heard from Allah's Messenger pertaining to the Dajjal. He said that the Dajjal would appear, and there would be along with him water and fire, and what the people would see as water, that would be fire, and that would burn, and what would appear as fire, that would be water, and any one of you who would see that should plunge in that which he sees as fire, for it would be sweet pure water. And Uqba said, I also heard it, testifying Hudayfa. Hudayfa and Ibn Masud met together. Hudayfa said, I know more than you as to what there would be along with the Dajjal. There would be along with him two canals, one flowing with water and the other one having fire within it. And what you would see as fire would be water, and what you would see as water would be fire. So he who amongst you is able to see that and is desirous of water should drink out of that which he sees as fire. Abu Hurairah reported Allah's Messenger as saying, May I not inform you about the Dajjal, what no apostle of Allah narrated to his people. He would be blind, and he would bring along with him an image of paradise and hellfire, and what he would call as paradise, that will be hellfire. And I warn you, as Noah warned his people. An-Nawas bi Saman reported that Allah's Messenger made a mention of the Dajjal one day in the morning. He sometimes described him to be insignificant, and sometimes described his turmoil as very significant, and we felt as if he were in the cluster of the date palm trees. When we went to him, to the Holy Prophet in the evening, and he read the signs of fear in our faces, he said, What is the matter with you? We said, Allah's Messenger, you made a mention of the Dajjal in the morning, sometimes describing him to be insignificant and sometimes very important, until we began to think as if he were present in some near part of the cluster of the date palm trees. Thereupon he said, I harbor fear in regard to you in so many other things besides the Dajjal, if he comes forth while I am among you. I shall contend with him on your behalf, but if he comes forth while I am not amongst you, a man must contend on his own behalf, and Allah would take care of every Muslim on my behalf and safeguard him against his evil. He, Dajjal, would be a young man with twisted, contracted hair and a blind eye. I compare him to Abd ul-Uzza bi Qatan. He who amongst you would survive to see him should recite over him the opening verses of Surah Kaf XVIII. He would appear on the way between Syria and Iraq and would spread mischief right and left. O servant of Allah, adhere to the path of truth. We said, Allah's Messenger, how long would he stay on the earth? He said, for 40 days, one day like a year, and one day like a month, and one day like a week, and the rest of the days would be like your days. We said, Allah's Messenger, would one day's prayer suffice for the prayers of day equal to 1 year? Thereupon he said, No, but you must make an estimate of time, and then observe prayer. We said, Allah's Messenger, how quickly would he walk upon the earth? Thereupon he said, like a cloud driven by the wind. He would come to the people and invite them to a wrong religion, and they would affirm their faith in him and respond to him. He would then give command to the sky, and there would be rainfall upon the earth, and it would grow crops. Then in the evening their pasturing animals would come to them with their humps very high, and their udders full of milk, and their flanks stretched. He would then come to another people and invite them, but they would reject him, and he would go away from them, and there would be drought for them, and nothing would be left with them in the form of wealth. He would then walk through the wasteland and say to it, Bring forth your treasures, and the treasures would come out and collect themselves before him, like the swarm of bees. He would then call a person brimming with youth, and strike him with the sword, and cut him into 2 pieces, and make these pieces lie at a distance which is generally between the archer and his target. He would then call that young man, and he will come forward laughing, with his face gleaming with happiness, and it would be at this very time that Allah would send Jesus, son of Mary, and he will descend at the white minaret in the eastern side of Damascus, wearing 2 garments lightly dyed with saffron, and placing his hands on the wings of 2 angels. When he would lower his head, there would fall beads of perspiration from his head, and when he would raise it up, beads like pearls would scatter from it. Every non-believer who would smell the odor of himself would die, and his breath would reach as far as he would be able to see. He would then search for him, Dajjal, until he would catch hold of him at the gate of Lud, and would kill him. Then a people whom Allah had protected would come to Jesus, son of Mary, and he would wipe their faces and would inform them of their ranks in paradise. And it would be under such conditions that Allah would reveal to Jesus these words, I have brought forth from amongst my servants such people against whom none would be able to fight. You take these people safely to Tur, and then Allah would send Gog and Magog, and they would swarm down from every slope. The first of them would pass the lake of Tiberias and drink out of it. And when the last of them would pass, he would say, There was once water there. Jesus and his companions would then be besieged here at Tur, and they would be so much hard pressed that the head of the ox would be dearer to them than 100 dinars. And Allah's apostle Jesus and his companions would supplicate Allah, who would send to them insects which would attack their necks. And in the morning they would perish like one single person. Allah's apostle Jesus and his companions would then come down to the earth, and they would not find in the earth as much space as a single span, which is not filled with their putrefaction and stench. Allah's apostle Jesus and his companions would then again besiege Allah, who would send birds whose necks would be like those of Bactrian camels, and they would carry them and throw them where God would will. Then Allah would send rain, which no house of clay or the tent of camels hairs would keep out, and it would wash away the earth until it could appear to be a mirror. Then the earth would be told to bring forth its fruit and restore its blessing, and as a result thereof there would grow such a big pomegranate that a group of persons would be able to eat that and seek shelter under its skin, and milch cow would give so much milk that the whole party would be able to drink it, and the milch camel would give such a large quantity of milk that the whole tribe would be able to drink out of that, and the milch sheep would give so much milk that the whole family would be able to drink out of that. And at that time Allah would send a pleasant wind which would suit people even under their armpits, and would take the life of every Muslim, and only the wicked would survive, who would commit adultery like asses, and the last hour would come to them. This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Jabir, with the same chain of transmitters, but with this addition that Gog and Magog would walk until they would reach the mountain of Al-Qamar, and it is a mountain of Bait ul-Maqdis, and they would say, "We have killed those who are upon the earth, let us now kill those who are in the sky." And they would throw their arrows towards the sky, and the arrows would return to them, besmeared with blood. And in the narration of Ibn Hujr, the words are, "I have sent such persons, Gog and Magog, that none would dare fight against them." Chapter 21. Description of Al-Dajjal. Al-Madinah is forbidden to him. He will kill a believer and bring him back to life. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri reported that Allah's Messenger one day gave a detailed account of the Dajjal, and in that it was also included, He would come but would not be allowed to enter the mountain passes to Medina, so he will alight at some of the barren tracts near Medina. And a person who would be the best of men, or one from amongst the best of men, would say to him, "I bear testimony to the fact that you are Dajjal, about whom Allah's Messenger had informed us." The Dajjal would say, "What is your opinion if I kill this person? Then I bring him back to life. Even then, will you harbor doubt in this matter?" They would say, "No." He would then kill the man and then bring him back to life. When he would bring that person to life, he would say, "By Allah, I had no better proof of the fact that you are a Dajjal, than at the present time that you are actually so." The Dajjal would then make an attempt to kill him again, but he would not be able to do that. Abu Ishaq reported that it was said, "That person would be Qadir, Allah be pleased with him." This hadith has been narrated by Sudi with the same chain of transmitters. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri reported Allah's Messenger as saying, the Dajjal would come forth, and a person from amongst the believers would go towards him. And the armed men of the Dajjal would meet him, and they would say to him, "Where do you intend to go?" He would say, "I intend to go to this one who is coming forth." They would say to him, "Don't you believe in our Lord?" He would say, "There is nothing hidden about our Lord." They would say, "Kill him." Then some amongst them would say, "Has your master, Dajjal, not forbidden you to kill anyone without his consent?" And so they would take him to the Dajjal. And when the believer would see him, he would say, "O people, he is the Dajjal, about whom Allah's messenger has informed us." The Dajjal would then order for breaking his head, and utter these words, "Catch hold of him and break his head. He will be struck even on his back and on his stomach." Then the Dajjal would ask him, "Don't you believe in me?" He would say, "You are a false Messiah." He would then order him to be torn into pieces with a saw from the parting of his hair up to his legs. After that, the Dajjal would walk between the two pieces. He would then say to him, "Stand," and he would stand erect. He would then say to him, "Don't you believe in me?" And the person would say, "It has only added to my insight concerning you that you are really the Dajjal." He would then say, "O people, he would not behave with anyone amongst people in such a manner after me." The Dajjal would try to catch hold of him so that he should kill him again. The space between his neck and collarbone would be turned into copper, and he would find no means to kill him, so he would catch hold of him by his hand and feet and throw him into the air. And the people would think as if he had been thrown in the hellfire, whereas he would be thrown in paradise. Thereupon Allah's messenger said, "He will be the most eminent amongst persons in regard to martyrdom in the eye of the Lord of the world." Chapter 22. Ad-Dajjal is very insignificant before Allah. Mughira bin Shuba reported, "No one asked Allah's messenger more about Dajjal than I asked him. He said, he should not be a source of worry to you, for he would not be able to do any harm to you. I said, Allah's messenger, it is alleged that he would have along with him abundance of food and water. Thereupon he said, he will be very insignificant in the eye of Allah, even with all this." Mughira bin Shuba reported that none asked Allah's apostle about Dajjal more than I asked him. One of the narrators, other than Mughira bin Shuba, said, "What did you ask?" Mughira replied, "I said that the people alleged that he would have a mountain load of bread and mutton and rivers of water. Thereupon he said, he will be more insignificant in the eye of Allah compared with all this." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Ismail through other chains of transmitters, with a slight variation of wording. Chapter 23. The emergence of Ad-Dajjal and his stay on earth, and the descent of Isa, who will kill him, the death of the people of goodness and faith, and the survival of the worst of people and their idol worship, the trumpet blast, and the resurrection of those who are in their graves. Abdullah bin Ahmed reported that a person came to him and said, What is this hadith that you narrate that the last hour would come at such and such time? Thereupon he said, Hallowed be Allah, there is no God but Allah, or the words to the same effect. I have decided that I would not narrate anything to anyone now. I had only said that you would see after some time an important event, that the sacred house Kaaba would be burnt, and it would happen, and definitely happen. He then reported that Allah's messenger said that Dajjal would appear in my ummah, and he would stay in the world for 40. I cannot say whether he meant 40 days, 40 months, or 40 years. And Allah would then send Jesus, son of Mary, who would resemble Urwa bin Masud. He, Jesus Christ, would chase him and kill him. Then people would live for 7 years. But that there would be no rancor between two persons. Then Allah would send cold wind from the side of Syria, that none would survive upon the earth having a speck of good in him or faith in him, but he would die. So much so that even if some amongst you were to enter the innermost part of the mountain, this wind would reach that place also, and that would cause his death. I heard Allah's messenger as saying, only the wicked people would survive, and they would be as careless as birds, with the characteristics of beasts. They would never appreciate the good nor condemn evil. Then Satan would come to them in human form and would say, don't you respond? And they would say, what do you order us? And he would command them to worship the idols, but in spite of this, they would have abundance of sustenance and lead comfortable lives. Then the trumpet would be blown, and no one would hear that, but he would bend his neck to one side and raise it from the other side, and the first one to hear that trumpet would be the person who would be busy in setting right the tank meant for providing water to the camels. He would swoon, and the other people would also swoon. Then Allah would send, or he would cause to send rain, which would be like a dew, and there would grow out of it the bodies of the people. Then the second trumpet would be blown, and they would stand up and begin to look around. Then it will be said, O people, go to your Lord, and make them stand there. And they would be questioned. Then it would be said, bring out a group out of them for the hellfire. And then it would be asked, how much? It will be said, 999 out of 1,000 for the hellfire. And that would be the day which would make the children old because of its terror. And that would be the day about which it has been said, on the day when the shank would be uncovered. IXVIII 42. Yaqub bi Asim bi Urwa bi Masud reported, I heard a person saying to Abdullah bi Amr, you say that the last hour would come at such and such time. Whereupon he said, I had made up my mind that I would not narrate anything to you. I only said, but you would soon see after some time a very significant affair. For example, the burning of the house Kaaba. Shuba said like this, and Abdullah bin Amr reported Allah's Messenger having said, "The Dajjal would appear in my ummah," and in another hadith the words are, "None would survive who would have even a speck of faith in his heart, but he would be dead." Muhammad bin Jafar reported that Shuba narrated to him this hadith many a time, and I also read it out to him many a time. Abdullah bin Amr reported, "I committed to memory a hadith from Allah's Messenger, and I did not forget it after I had heard Allah's Messenger as saying, the first sign out of the signs of the appearance of the Dajjal would be the appearance of the sun from the west, the appearance of the beast before the people in the forenoon, and which of the two happens first? The second one would follow immediately after that." Abu Surah reported that 3 persons amongst Muslims had been sitting in Medina in the presence of Marwan bin Hakam, and they heard him narrate these signs from him, and the first amongst them was the appearance of the Dajjal. Abdullah bin Amr reported that Marwin said nothing particular in this connection. I, however, heard a hadith from Allah's Messenger, and I did not forget that after I had heard that from Allah's Apostle, and he reported a hadith like the foregoing. Abu Surah reported that there was a discussion in the presence of Marwan about the last hour, and Abdullah bin Amr said, "I heard Allah's Messenger as saying, the rest of the hadith is the same, but there is no mention of forenoon." Chapter 24. Al-Yassasa. Amir bin Shab Hamdan reported that he asked Fatima, daughter of Qais and sister of Ad-Dahak bin Qais, and she was the first amongst the emigrant women, "Narrate to me a hadith which you had heard directly from Allah's Messenger, and there is no extra link in between them." She said, "Very well, if you like. I am prepared to do that." And he said to her, "Well, do it, and narrate that to me." She said, I married the son of Mughira, and he was a chosen young man. Chosen young man of Quraysh at that time, but he fell as a martyr in the first jihad fighting on the side of Allah's Messenger. When I became a widow, Abd al-Rahman bin Auf, one amongst the group of the companions of Allah's Messenger, sent me the proposal of marriage. Allah's Messenger also sent me such a message for his freed slave Usama bin Zayd, and it had been conveyed to me that Allah's Messenger had said about Usama, "He who loves me should also love Usama." When Allah's Messenger talked to me about this matter, I said, "My affairs are in your hand. You may marry me to anyone whom you like." He said, "You better shift now to the house of Sharik." And Sharik was a rich lady from amongst the Ansar. She spent generously for the cause of Allah and entertained guests very hospitably. I said, "Well, I will do as you like." He said, "Do not do that, for Sharik is a woman who is very frequently visited by guests, and I do not like that your head may be uncovered or the cloth may be removed from your shank, and the strangers may catch sight of them, which you abhor. You better shift to the house of your cousin Abdullah bi Amr bi Maktum. And he is a person of the Bani Fir branch of the Quraysh, and he belonged to that tribe to which Fatima belonged. So I shifted to that house, and when my period of waiting was over, I heard the voice of an announcer making an announcement that the prayer would be observed in the mosque where congregational prayer is observed. So I set out towards that mosque. And observed prayer along with Allah's Messenger. And I was in the row of the woman, which was near the row of men. When Allah's Messenger had finished his prayer, he sat on the pulpit, smiling, and said, "Every worshipper should keep sitting at his place." He then said, "Do you know why I had asked you to assemble?" They said, "Allah and His Messenger know best." He said, "By Allah, I have not made you assemble for exhortation or for a warning, but I have detained you here for Tamim Dari, a Christian who came and accepted Islam, told me something which agrees with what I was telling you about the Dajjal. He narrated to me that he had sailed in a ship along with 30 men of Bani Lakim and Bani Judham, and had been tossed by waves in the ocean for a month. Then these waves took them near the land within the ocean, Iceland, within the land within the ocean, island, at the time of sunset. They sat in a small side boat and entered that island. There was a beast with long thick hair, and because of these they could not distinguish his face from his back. They said, "Woe to you! Who can you be?" Thereupon it said, "I am Al-Yassasa." They said, "What is Al-Yassasa?" And it said, "O people, go to this person in the monastery, as he is very much eager to know about you." He, the narrator, said, "When it named a person for us, we were afraid of it, lest it should be a devil. Then we hurriedly went on till we came to that monastery, and found a well-built person there, with his hands tied to his neck, and having iron shackles between his two legs, up to the ankles. We said, 'Woe be upon thee, who are you?' And he said, 'You would soon come to know about me. But tell me, who are you?' We said, 'We are people from Arabia, and we embarked upon a boat, but the sea waves had been driving us for 1 month. And they brought us near this island. We got into the side boats and entered this island. And here a beast met us with profusely thick hair, and because of the thickness of his hair, his face could not be distinguished from his back. We said, 'Woe be to thee, who are you?' It said, 'I am Al-Yassasa.' We said, 'What is Al-Yassasa?' And it said, 'You go to this very person in the monastery, for he is eagerly waiting for you to know about you.' So we came to you in hot haste, fearing that might be the devil, he that changed person. said, "Tell me about the date palm trees of Bison." We said, "About what aspect of theirs do you seek information?" He said, "I ask you whether these trees bear fruit or not." We said, "Yes." Thereupon he said, "I think these would not bear fruits." He said, "Inform me about the lake of Tabaria." We said, "Which aspect of it do you want to know?" He said, "Is there water in it?" They said, "There is abundance of water in it." Thereupon he said, "I think it would soon become dry." He again said, "Inform me about the spring of Sughar." They said, "Which aspect of it you want to know?" He, the chained person, said, "Is there water in it, and does it irrigate the land?" We said to him, "Yes, there is abundance of water in it, and the inhabitants of Medina irrigate land with the help of it." He said, "Inform me about the unlettered prophet. What has he done?" We said, "He has come out from Mecca and has settled in Yathrib, Medina." He said, Do the Arabs fight against him?" We said, "Yes." He said, "How did he deal with them?" We informed him that he had overcome those in his neighborhood, and they had submitted themselves before him. Thereupon he said to us, "Has it actually happened?" We said, "Yes." Thereupon he said, "If it is so, that is better for them, that they should show obedience to him. I am going to tell you about myself, and I am Dajjal, and would be soon permitted to get out. And so I shall get out and travel in the land, and will not spare any town where I would not stay for 40 nights, except Mecca and Medina, as these two places are prohibited areas for me, and I would not make an attempt to enter any one of these two. An angel with a sword in his hand would confront me and would bar my way, and there would be angels to guard every passage leading to it. Then Allah's messenger, striking the pulpit with the help of the end of his staff, said, "This implies Taiba, meaning Medina. Have I not told you an account of the Dajjal like this?" The people said, "Yes, and this account narrated by Tamim Dari was liked by me, for it corroborates the account which I gave to you in regard to him, Dajjal, at Medina and Mecca. Behold, he Dajjal is in the Syrian Sea, Mediterranean, or the Yemen Sea, Arabian Sea. Nay, on the contrary, he is in the east, he is in the east, and he pointed with his hand towards the east. I, Fatima bint Qais, said, I preserved it in my mind, this narration from Allah's Messenger. Al-Shabi reported, we visited Fatima bint Qais, and she served us fresh dates, which are called rutab, and she also served us barley. I asked her about that woman, in whose case 3 divorces had been pronounced, as to how much time she should count as the waiting period. She said, my husband pronounced 3 divorces in my case, and Allah's Messenger permitted me to spend any waiting period in my family. It was during this period that announcement was made for the people to observe prayer in the bigger mosque I went there along with people, and I was in the front row, meant for women, and it was adjacent to the last row of men. And I heard Allah's messenger deliver sermons sitting on the pulpit. He said, "The cousin of Tamim, Dari, sailed in the ocean." The rest of the hadith is the same, but with this addition, I see as if I am looking to Allah's apostle, pointing his rod towards the land and saying, "It is Taiba, i Medina." Tamim Dari came to Allah's messenger and informed Allah's messenger that he sailed in an ocean and his ship lost direction and thus landed at an island. They moved about in that land in search of water. There they saw a person who had been pulling his hair. The rest of the hadith is the same, and he, Dajjal, said, "If I were to be permitted to set out, I would have covered all the lands except Taiba." Then Allah's messenger brought Tamim Dari before the public, and he narrated to them and said, "That is Taiba, and that is the Dajjal." Fatima b. Qais reported that Allah's messenger sat on the pulpit and said, "O people, Tamim Dari has reported to me that some persons of his tribe sailed in the ocean in a boat and it capsized, and then some of them traveled on one of the planks of the boat, and they went to an island in the ocean." The rest of the hadith is the same. Anas bin Malik reported that Allah's messenger said, "There will be no land which would not be covered by Dajjal but Mecca and Medina, and there would no passage out of the passages leading to them which would not be guarded by angels arranged in rows. Then he, the Dajjal, would appear in a barren place adjacent to Medina, and it would rock 3 times, that every unbeliever and hypocrite would get out of it towards him." This hadith has been transmitted on the authority of Anas that Allah's messenger said this, but with this addition that the Dajjal would come and pitch his tent in the wasteland of Jurif, and thus there would come out of the city every hypocrite man and woman. Chapter 25. The rest of the hadith about Ad-Dajjal. Anas bin Malik reported that Allah's messenger said that Dajjal would be followed by 70,000 Jews of Isfahan wearing Persian shawls. Sharik reported, "I heard Allah's messenger as saying, the people would run away from the Dajjal seeking shelter in the mountains." She said, "Where would be the Arabs then in the next day? Where would be the Arabs then in that day?" He said, "They will be small in number." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Ibn Jurayj with the same chain of transmitters. Abu Qatada reported, "We used to go to Imran b. Hussein, passing in front of Hisham b. Amir. He one day said, 'You pass by me in order to go to some persons, but amongst the living persons none remained in the company of Allah's messenger more than I, and none knows more ahadith than I. I heard Allah's messenger as saying, there will be no creating more trouble than the Dajjal right from the creation of Adam to the last hour." This hadith has been transmitted on the authority of Imran bin Hussein with a slight variation of wording. Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger having said, "Hasten to do good deeds before 6 things happen: the rising of the sun from the west, the smoke, the Dajjal, the beast, and the death of one of you, or the general turmoil." Abu Huraira reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "Hasten in performing these good deeds before these 6 things happen: the appearance of the Dajjal, the smoke, the beast of the earth, the rising of the sun from the west, the general turmoil leading to large-scale massacre, and death of masses and individuals." This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Qatada through another chain of transmitters. Chapter 26. The virtue of worship at times of turmoil. Maqil bin Yasar reported Allah's Apostle as saying, "Worshipping during the period of widespread turmoil is like emigration towards me." Worshipping. The previous hadith is narrated through Abu Kamil from Hamad with the same chain. Chapter 27. The approach of the hour. Abdullah reported Allah's Apostle as saying, "The last hour would affect most terribly the wicked persons." This hadith has been reported by Sal bin Sa'd that he heard Allah's Messenger as saying, "I and the last hour are close to each other, like this," and he, in order to explain it, pointed by joining his forefinger one next to the thumb and the middle finger together. Anas bin Malik reported that Allah's Messenger, may peace be upon him, said, "I and the last hour have been sent like this." Shuba said, "I heard Qatada as saying in his narration, the excellence of one over the other, and I do not know whether he narrated it from Anas or Qatada himself said so." Shuba reported, "I heard Qatada and Abu Tayyab narrating that both of them heard Anas as narrating that Allah's Messenger said, 'I and the last hour have been sent like this,' and Shuba drew his forefinger and middle finger near each other while narrating it. This hadith has been narrated on the authority of Anas through another chain of transmitters. Anas reported Allah's Apostle as saying like this, but he narrated it through another chain of transmitters. Anas reported Allah's Messenger as saying, "I and the last hour have been sent like this," and he, while doing it, joined the forefinger with the middle finger. Aisha reported that when the desert Arabs came to Allah's Messenger, they asked about the last hour as to when that would come, and he looked towards the youngest amongst them and said, "If he lives, he would not grow very old, that he would find your last hour coming to you. He would see you dying." Anas reported that a person asked Allah's Messenger as to when the last hour would come. He had in his presence a young boy of the Ansar who was called Muhammad. Allah's Messenger said, "If this young boy lives, he may not grow very old till he would see the last hour coming to you." Anas bin Malik reported that a person asked Allah's Apostle When would the last hour come? Thereupon Allah's messenger, may peace be upon him, kept quiet for a while, then looked at a young boy in his presence belonging to the tribe of Shanua, and he said, if this boy lives, he would not grow very old till the last hour would come to you. Anas said that this young boy was of our age during those days. Anas reported, a young boy of Mughira b. Shuba happened to pass by the Holy Prophet, and he was of my age. Thereupon Allah's apostle said, if he lives long, he would not grow very old till the last hour would come to the old people of this generation. Abu Huraira reported Allah's messenger as saying, the last hour would come so sudden that a person would be milking the she-camel and the milk would not reach the brim of the vessel, that the last hour would come, and the two persons would be engaged in buying and selling of the clothes, and their bargain would not be struck before the last hour would come, and someone would be setting his tank in order, and he would have hardly set it right when the last hour would come. Chapter 28. Between the blasts of the trumpet. Abu Huraira reported Allah's messenger as saying, between the two blowings of the trumpet there would be an interval of 40. They said, Abu Huraira, do you mean 40 days? He said, I cannot say anything. They said, do you mean 40 months? He said, I cannot say anything. They said, do you mean 40 years? He said, I cannot say anything. Then Allah would cause the water to descend from the sky, and people will sprout like vegetable. The only thing in a man which would not decay would be one bone, the tailbone, from which the whole frame will be reconstituted on the day of resurrection. Abu Huraira reported Allah's messenger as saying, the earth would consume all of the son of Adam except his tailbone. From it he was created, and from it he will be recreated on the day of resurrection. Abu Huraira reported so many ahadith from Allah's apostle, and amongst these one was this, that Allah's messenger said, there is a bone in the human being which the earth would never consume, and it is from this that new bodies would be reconstituted on the day of resurrection. They said, Allah's messenger, which bone is that? Thereupon he said, it is the spinal bone.